Let's look at shoulder rest problems for players with smaller structures and see if we might find a setup that works for you. Welcome to our series on knowledge and awareness in violin and viola playing. In the previous video, we looked at basic shoulder rest setup and found that there was a problem. Most shoulder rests seem to be built for players with a large frame, and many violinists and violists have a smaller frame, meaning that the weight reintroduction into the body occurs too far off to the left, almost as if you're wearing a suit of clothes that's too big for you. So are there any shoulder rests out there that work well for players with smaller frames? The good news is that there are models that will fit a smaller body size. We'll examine 3 that might provide some help, look at their advantages and drawbacks, and offer tips on adjusting them to fit your particular style. Also, for those with a table easel construction with higher shoulders and a slope in front, these shoulder rests might work well for you too. But first, if you might take just a moment to click like and subscribe, that would be great. It helps us out and lets us know that our content is providing information that's helpful for you. And second, if you haven't watched that last video about shoulder rests, I highly recommend that you do that, as we cover the basics of shoulder rest function and fitting, and we'll be referring to those ideas in this video. You can find that video here, and after watching it, come back to this one. For a quick review, the shoulder rest provides infill and weight reintroduction back into the body, and we want that reintroduction to be as near as possible to the core of balance, the part of the body that supports us, so that we use the body's natural weight management structures to hold the instrument. Most shoulder rests, though, attach off to the left. This can work well if you have a large structure, but many players are more slender and find that this reintroduces the weight too far away from their core. So, just what are we looking for in a shoulder rest for a slender player? First, it should attach pretty close to the neck, near our vertebrae, and this is for both the lower and upper string feet. This means that the rest will probably have some sort of crescent shape to wrap around the neck. Second, it should have a lower string foot that can go pretty low and an upper string foot that can go really high. Many slender players need a lot, and I mean a lot, of height on their upper string foot, often a lot more than you find on most shoulder rests. Third, it would be really nice to be able to bend the shoulder rest to our individual profile, and this might mean some sort of metal backing. And fourth, many slender players have a shoulder that peaks or comes to a point at the crest of the shoulder, so that the instrument is balanced pretty precariously. Some sort of hook over the shoulder might help provide some stability for their hold. So let's look at 3 candidates. The first is the Belvelin. Now the Belvelin, straight out of the box, has a square shape that can dig into your skin, so this one has been shaped for the shoulder. The hard foam can be cut with a bread knife, scissors, or belt sander to conform to your hold. It's held in place with a rubber band, and some players don't like having a shoulder rest up against the back of the instrument. As I say, it muffles the sound, but I've found that the Belvelin foam is hard enough that it doesn't mute the instrument, but actually seems to kick the vibrations out more because it's so stiff. I use one cut down to about 1/4 of an inch, and I've noticed no dampening of my sound. So, for the pros, as it's held on with a rubber band, we can move it around wherever we want, so that it feels really snug in there. For the height, it can go pretty high on the upper string side, and if you need more height, you can use contact cement to glue extra sponges under the upper string area. For shaping, it's easily cut to fit your shoulder shape, and for the hook, you can cut some sort of hook into the shape. Now for the cons. The foam is really pretty hard and can actually abrade the skin. I've glued some of those red sponges on the back of mine to make it feel better. Second, cutting it to an exact shape can be tricky. And third, the pad actually seems quite small and can be a bit unstable. Anyway, this is overall a decent solution for slender players. I used to recommend this as my go-to for players with shoulder rest issues, and it still remains a viable choice. But there are some that might provide an even better hold than this one. So let's move on to the second choice, the Wolf Forte Secundo. This has a pretty clever design and ticks off a lot of boxes. First, we can see that it has a crescent shape and wraps pretty tightly around the neck. This brings the contact point really close to the balance core. And we can alter the distance between the feet by sliding the upper string foot on this wire, which has a screw to hold it in place. It's really stable because the feet are offset from the pad. We can see that the pad is in quite a ways closer than the feet, which allows for a better grip on the instrument. Also, the feet give plenty of grip so that the rest doesn't easily slip off. Second, we can get the feet extremely high or low. For a higher upper string foot, there's a neat trick that a lot of people don't know about. First, unscrew the bass so that it's set pretty high in its hole. Then, holding the bass, turn the foot itself so that it goes higher. You can see that it's telescoping up to an extremely tall height. Now, this setup can feel kind of unstable, so Wolf includes these little cylinders that fit over the threads, and they do a good job of stabilizing the foot. And the foot can go pretty high, up to about 2 3/4 inches or about 7 centimeters. If we want a low foot, you can unscrew the foot from its thicker base, flip the base upside down, and re-screw the foot into the hole. This brings the foot really low. Third, for shape, the Wolf has a neat feature. Since it has metal backing, you can bend it to fit your shoulder shape, and even to get a bit of a hook over the shoulder. And here's a cool feature that a client pointed out to me. It can bend not just this way, but also this way into a spiral shape. You see, shoulders are often flat up here, but angled down here like this. If the rest has the same profile all along its length, it can dig in either up at the shoulder or down at the chest. With this one, we can undulate the curve to fit our shape. To do this, hold the lower string end in your left hand and the upper string end in your right hand. Now, turn your right hand like this, like you're wringing out a washcloth. This will start to angle the upper string side to a chest-like tilt. Now, if you put a hook in the shoulder, or really any shaping adjustment, you might run up against the problem that the lower string foot no longer makes good contact with the instrument. No problem. Since the attachment between the foot and the pad is also a thin piece of metal, you can bend the foot attachment like this to bring the foot back to the instrument. One thing to note is that the Forte Secundo can send the violin a bit off to the center, so you'll want to take that into consideration. Now for the cons. First, the Wolf really has one design flaw that can easily be overcome. That wire that moves the upper string foot is not really well attached, meaning the foot can flop around. Since we want both feet to be at the same angle, or else the shoulder rest can torque off the instrument, this can cause a problem. We can solve this by inserting a bit of cardboard, like from a cereal box top, under the wire like this, and then holding it in place with some black tape. Figure out the angle that you want for the feet, sight down them so that you're sure they're on the same level, and secure that upper string foot. Second, it can't give a really strong hook over the shoulder, so if you're looking for that, it might prove problematic. Third, the pad is a bit undersized. We'll look at this relative to the next one, but it can give a feeling of not being completely stable. So to summarize, the pros are a wraparound profile close to the neck, feet that can go really high or low, it's bendable in several directions, and it can form somewhat of a hook. The cons are, the upper string foot can be unstable, but that's easily fixed. The over-the-shoulder hook is minimal, and the pad is a little undersized. Now we come to one that I, until recently, did not like at all. I felt it was ugly, too heavy, dug into my shoulder and locked the instrument into place and didn't allow me to move at all. Then a client showed me some new things to do with it, and now it might be one of my favorites, at least for these smaller structures, and that is the Bonn Musica. So let's start with the positioning on the body. At first glance, it appears to be ill-suited for this, as the pad is straight, with no curve around the neck. But the back has several adjusting holes here where you can vary the angle of the hook going backwards, and if you measure the distance between the holes, you can drill new holes into the plates that will bring the hook even farther around, creating quite a crescent around the neck and bringing it really close in. And like the Wolf, the Bonn Musica feet have a really good grip on the instrument. For the height of the feet, we can do that same turning for the lower string foot that we did on the Wolf, and the upper string foot can go extremely high with a total extension of about 3.5 inches or 8.9 centimeters, and it feels really secure at that height. Now for the bendability, The Bond Musica's metal back is stiffer than the Wolf's, but it can be bent with a bit of effort. This can be really important as it has these really sharp corners that can dig into your skin, and twisting it to fit the curve down the shoulder can make it a lot more comfortable. And as far as the hook, this might be where the Bond Musica really shines. It has this big hook that extends far past the foot and can really grip the shoulder. So for the pros, the pad can be adjusted to wrap around the neck, and you can adjust the amount of wrap. The feet can go extremely low or high, it's bendable, and the hook wraps pretty far up over the shoulder. Now for the cons, it does have this sort of industrial look. They didn't give a lot of thought to the visual aesthetics, and the pad maybe could be a bit wider. Now there might be some areas where one has an advantage over the other. For the Bond Musica, the first is that the feet have these heavy nuts and bolts to keep the feet angles solid, so it's not going to move around like the Wolf might on that upper string foot. The second is that the pad is longer from foot to foot than on the Wolf. The Wolf is about 7 inches or 17.75 centimeters, and the Bond Musica is around 8 inches or 20.3 centimeters. This extra length can give a lot more secure feeling under the instrument. The third is that the upper string foot on the Bond Musica can go higher than the Wolf's, and the foot feels more secure. An advantage for the Wolf is that the pad is wider this way. The Bond Musica might feel a little severe on your shoulder, where the Wolf might feel a little more cushiony. So there they are, 3 shoulder rests that might work for a more slender structure or an easel construction in front. Now, do understand that these are just my impressions and observations from working with a lot of slender and easel players, and is based on their overall reactions. Players are extremely individualistic in their shapes and preferences, and these ideas might not work for everyone, and a lot of slender players will be perfectly comfortable with other shoulder rests. What we're trying to present is a logical way to approach the shoulder rest problem, and to give you a starting point to find your own solutions. So what solutions have you, as slender players, found for shoulder rests? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always fascinated to hear what solutions players have found, and I'm always eager to hear new strategies for holding the violin and viola. As usual, thanks for staying all the way through this. We generally cover a lot of technical ground, but I do feel that it's important to have a deep understanding of our body basics if we're going to feel at home with our instruments. To help out, we offer our Buy One, Try 4 option, where you can try up to 4 models and heights for a 30-day trial period, and I'm happy to do free video chat consultations if you might have any questions or issues. Also, come visit us at wavechinrest.com, where we have a lot of information on violin holding, wood selection, and body structure. As usual, liking and subscribing would help us out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.